Very welcome to the Women's Rugby Pod, episode 190. Sadia Kabeir's in the house.
Hello, hello.
How are you, Sadia? It's a feedback. Daiquiri time now, isn't it? Season's finished. You've only got one more exam left, is that right? Have you done that now?
No, exams done now. Yeah.
I mean, literally is tequila time, isn't it?
Not quite yet. Not quite yet. I've got a holiday booked, waiting for the holiday. But I'm in the middle of moving out of my uni house because I got to get it done for all my holidays. Because they kind of clash. So I'm just trying to get that in. So then when I'm on holiday, I can relax.
So you're packing up boxes. That is stressful. Packing up boxes and moving is stressful.
Yes.
Yeah, no, absolutely. But you've been going to some swanky do's, some awards night and what have you. I know the Loughborough Lightning, the African Violets had their awards night. I love the juxtaposition between when you guys are playing and what you put out in the park, and then you see the photos of some young ladies looking like young ladies in dresses and what have you. It's I think it's just fantastic. But good nights all round.
Yeah, no, really good nights. It's always nice to celebrate the end of season. It's been a super long season for all the girls, non-internationals too. So I think it was nice to just, finish on an okay result, a better result, compared to what we have been getting, against Saracens, and to be able to have a few drinks after. It was really nice, and it's always nice to dress up. So,
did anybody have too many drinks? Yes, Johnny, but I'm not going to tell you. Good.
not that I'm aware of, actually. I think everyone was well behaved.
Perhaps it was you then, Sadia. You just don't remember.
Perhaps.
Well, look, coming up on the pod today, we said we are going to get some reflection on Fiji at the moment. I'm delighted that Alana Thomas, the high performance manager for Fiji Women, joined us. Just a moment or two. Alana talks about Fiji women not being in a better place, really. Won Oceania Championships of the weekend, overturning Samoa result from last year. So that means they're in the World Cup. Qualified to WXV3, their second World Cup. Sevens has been doing okay, semi-finals and what have you in Singapore. But also, some troublesome reports of their players sleeping outside of airports and whatever. And so, look, we cover the whole lot. Alana speaks absolutely brilliant, and that's coming up in a moment or two. We'll look ahead to the PWR semi-finals as well. There's news from all over the world. Club results in France, the two to battle it out to the elite feminine champions is out after semi-finals this weekend. Rory will bring us up to date with all of those, and who won the sevens in the end in Madrid. That's all coming up. But Sadia, let's start with news closer to home. England contracts were awarded back end of last week. Many congratulations. Heard you and Bernard just about squeezed in. But look, not an easy sort of question, whatever. I think consistency is probably the word that springs to mind when you look at that squad. Some sympathy would go out to Poppy Cleal, to Emma Singh, to Amber Reid, regulars in the squads and contracted players for a while now. Mehdi Fanati and Ealing's Liz Craig named for the first time among the 32 players who've been awarded those contracts. They're varying lengths, the contracts, 29 and 32 were involved in the Grand Slam. 8 transition contracts offered as well. Maisie Allen, Nancy McGilvray and Katie Buchanan from Exeter, Grace Clifford, Peter Eve Campion from Loughborough Lightning, Mia Venner and Steph Else from Gloucester-Hartpury. I don't want to go into specifics with you, Sada, because I don't think that's fair. But your sort of reflections on the contracts and that squad, or was it just sort of bat on as per normal?
Yeah, I think obviously, like you said, Emma Singh, Poppy Cleal, Amber Reid, tough to miss out that all three of them are class players in their own right. And there's only 32 contracts to go out, so I'm sure it was a hard decision for John Mitchell, but I think, Maddie Finasi coming in, and Liz Craig getting first contracts. I think especially in Maddie, she's someone new, and I think she's shown she's got a lot of potential there. So I think, a huge fan, and she's also been, fit into the squad really nicely as well. And Liz, someone who's just worked so hard. When I was back at Wasps, when I first started in the Prem, she'd been in and out of camp, and this was always one of her aspirations to, get a contract. So yeah, really, really well done to those two. But yeah, like you say, that it's tough on those girls that have missed out, and the girls that were in Six Nations camp, the campaign, and missing out on those final contracts. But I'm sure we'll see them in and around camp. But yeah, very in length. So yeah, don't know what happens there.
Yeah, I mean, a couple of Six Nations ago, wasn't it? Poppy Clear was riding high and sort of sounded as a best player on the planet. It's incredibly personal, and I don't want to put words in John Mitchell's mouth. We should speak to him and ask him. But as you say, a Manny Fanatic, only 22 years of age, and lots and lots of attention has been given to her, and lots of people after her when she returned from New Zealand. So we'll wait to see how she develops. But she's in that sort of Alex Matthews mold, isn't she? Would I right be saying that?
Yeah, she's in that 6/8 kind of position, which is what Alex has now moved to, being kind of the new 8 she's kind of molding into right now. But yeah, I think very very similar in terms of positions and what they can both bring.
Because he's just lining up the cabs now, aren't we? It's extraordinary. I wonder whether that's why Maddie's there, just lining up in behind Alex as a very sort of similar kind of player. And Liz Craig, I'm just delighted for her. Many moons ago, we did a pod with her on the eve of her debut, or just after her debut for the Red Roses. But for her to get a contract, a lady who's given a huge amount to, as you say, Was and now Ealing. Yeah, absolutely delighted for Liz. A nicer girl. You'd be hard pushed to find and meet. So yeah, congratulations to them. And those transition contracts, all very worthy. You obviously know a couple of them particularly well, Grayson and Lily. But there's some real potential there, isn't there?
Yeah, definitely. I think obviously the two new contracts, Mia Benner and Steph Else. Actually, Mia, I used to play with her, well, under 18 sevens, under 18 TDG days, which was, before the under 18s. Now it used to be called TDG. So yeah, quite good friends with her, and obviously she's got one cap. I remember actually being in under 20s at the time and watching it in camp, getting her first cap. So for it to flash forward to now and she get a transitional contract, really good for her. And Steph Else, I think she's been going really strong in the Prem. I think she's been really consistent with her performances. And she's super fit. When she came into camp, we had 1200, which is a baptism of fire, and she came and absolutely smashed it out of the park. So you started to see what she can do. And then the rest of the girls, they re-signed it again. But yeah, huge talent in those other contracts. And it's exciting to see these young players coming through the ranks as well.
Yeah, just being able to sort of know what is required of you and to get a taste of those senior caps and be in and around that the most elite, the most high performance program you're knocking around, certainly obviously in this country. So yeah, congratulations to all who've got contract, including yourself and Berna. She won't be happy to see Grace Clifford there, will she? Anyway, great stuff. Yeah, many congratulations to all of them. Without further ado, let's hear about Fiji now. And as I say, in an incredible place right now, qualified for their second ever World Cup. Alana Thomas, high performance manager, joins us on the Women's Rugby Pod. Absolute and utter pleasure to welcome. Hopefully, we can call her a friend of the pod. Good morning here, late evening there. Thank you so much for joining us, Alana. How are you?
Yeah, thanks, Johnny. Always good to join the pod. And yeah, things are going well. It's a cold 23 degrees over here in Suva at the moment. So we're in winter. It's nearly jumper weather. But yeah, all's going well in Fiji at the moment.
I mean, how to start a chat on the bad foot saying it's 23 degrees and that's cold? I mean, we got up to 19 degrees here and everybody's got their tops off and Pims out and the barbecues and all the rest of it for the 3 hours it was sunny the other day. But anyway, so you've been involved in Fiji for a while now. You based over there? We decamped from Australia where you were before and gone over there and jumped both feet straight in.
Yeah, definitely. I've moved over here. I've been here now 7 months
Wow.
in Fiji, living and based in Suva, in the sort of central district of Fiji on the main island here, and based out of the Fiji Rugby head offices, and then commute between Suva and Nandi, where sevens are in Suva and the 15s teams are now based in Nandi.
I mean, outside of the internet, which we've had some fun with this morning. How big a culture change is it? Are your eyes still sort of wide open and just absorbing it all, or is it a little bit frustrating at times? What's the differences between Oz and Fiji?
Well, definitely the people here are fantastic. The people of Fijian people are fantastic. They love their rugby. I always say Fiji is rugby and rugby is Fiji. They're so passionate about it. Definitely a culture shock coming from rugby in Australia to Fiji, but there's just so much potential. It was one of the reasons I took the role. I've had worked with Fiji over the last few years leading into the World Cup as well. So I sort of have a bit of familiarity with it, and just really excited to get into this role and start driving the women's game forward over here.
So, as you say, yeah, you're sort of assisting along into the World Cup. When did you take this role? That was 7 months ago. The high performance role, was it?
Yeah, I took it back at just before WXV started. So I pretty much arrived, had 3 days on island, and then spent 4 weeks in Dubai with the team, fully immersed in the 15s team, and got back November and then into December, sort of hit the ground running in December with the new general manager of high performance.
Yeah, another cold destination for you. Yeah, bet you packed a couple of jumpers for Dubai. I mean, it sounds tough. I mean, it sounds the biggest thing. Your biggest worry is the amount of sunscreen you need to have on all the time. But no, I'm jesting with you. The role that covers every aspect of high performance within Fiji women's rugby, is that right? 15s, sevens, sort of pathway stuff, all the rest of it.
Yeah, so the role's looking after mainly the two national programs, and so it's a World Rugby funded role. I think they put in roles in Australia and the USA last year as well. So fully funded by World Rugby to come over and look after the programs and really take women's rugby forward. And I suppose it's a part of that Accelerate program that they've got to accelerate women's rugby in the lead up to the next sort of three World Cups, 25, 29, 33. So yeah, coming in and driving. And my role in the next 2 years is to basically put in the system processes and systems to make sure it's sustainable moving forward. And that's something that there's a lot to do in that space, and supporting the women's teams and having a voice at the table within the union.
So much there that I want to pick up on, but you mentioned the World Cup. This been wanting to catch up with yourself and Fiji for a while now, but over the weekend, crowning yourself Oceania Rugby Championship champions, qualified for the World Cup. Huge congratulations. That must be possibly expected to do it, but after last year's final with Samoa and what have you, and that dramatic win that they had, probably not a foregone conclusion. But is it nice to get that monkey off that? Right, that's that done. Right, we can sort of just crack on in a sort of slightly more relaxed way.
Yeah, no, definitely. That was the goal coming into this year, was to qualify at Oceanias. We knew last year everyone was very disappointed over here with that result in Oceanias and getting put into coming second and coming into XV3. So this was the goal, was to win Oceanias this year and give us that 15 months to plan and prep for our second ever World Cup. And the benefit of winning it was we've jumped 2 ranking points as well, from 17 to 15, which is again going in the right direction and probably one of the best rankings that we've had in the history. So it's it's very exciting, but there's still a lot of work to do, and there's still a lot of growth and potential in this group of players in the 15 space.
What's the balance between excitement and being daunted by it? Look, I've never been lucky enough to go there, but being around rugby enough to know what you feel the vibe is. There's just rugby talent absolutely everywhere you look, and getting that talent under your high performance sort of wings is that's the biggest challenge. But does that do? Oh my God! Oh, she's really good. Oh, why did we do that? Is it exciting, or is it sort of frustrating, or a bit of both?
I think it's more excitement. I think that's the big thing. That the women's game since 2019 here has really gone and exploded with the team getting in their first Rugby World Cup, the Super W program within Rugby Australia's Super Rugby women's competition has really helped accelerate that. 2 times champions made the final this year, but were unfortunate not to win with the Fijian and Drua. And the growth and the development and the girls and the women playing rugby now is exploding. And we've got 2 tiers of women's domestic provincial competitions. We've got schoolgirls competitions. So it's just growing at a great rate. And it's just now about getting that talent and how do we create that pathway, because the pathway needs to be defined. And I think that's where we're sort of concentrating in this next 15 months to really go out and talent scout those players and bring them in and give them opportunities. And we're also talking about opportunities for underage teams, for those younger girls to get exposure as well. So there's a lot happening in the space. It can be daunting, but it's just exciting that we've got so much to work with, and it's about putting the right process and systems in place around that.
As we were sorting out the internet, we were just chatting. We did both saying just even 2-3 years ago, and we're going to continue to talk about sort of test matches and what have you. But just the amount of rugby that is now being offered these players, that the sort of school system and the underage stuff, was any of that in place pre 7 months ago?
Yeah, there was the schools competition was put in place, and the 2 competition tiers were there, and it's just been refined this year. So they have been putting these in place after the 2022 World Cup, which was a great initiative by the union. And now it's just about how we bring the high performance and those together, how we bring those players and transition them through the pathways and give them opportunities. And with the test matches that we're now having, the Fijian and Drua, how we now use that pathway to develop players and get them more exposure. I think this year we'll have 10 test matches across the 12 months, which is, I think, a record for us to hit double digits. And I think I'm very proud to say we've probably got more than the Flying Fijians, which is fantastic. And we've got 2 test matches at home, which are coming up in the next couple of weeks.
Yeah, we'll have a little chat about those Japan tests in a second. Like 2006, 2010, the Australian team that went into that Women's World Cup here in England, I think had only played 10 test matches in that 4 years. That's what we're looking at, isn't it? That's the growth, isn't it? It's extraordinary. You talk about all that excitement. What are the biggest challenges? What are the biggest hurdles that you have to get over, apart from the sunscreen?
Yeah, I think that the biggest thing is investment and sponsorship. You know, we've only got 1 sponsor on board at the moment, and we're trying to sort of build that and grow that, and getting these test matches in place, getting the funding from government to build our exposure, to get more people interested in the game is a big thing. We've also made some decisions around our investment around players, investing in them and putting them on contracts and moving to a centralised model in both 7s and 15s. In the lead up to these pinnacle events. So that's new and something that's different. They've been camp based before. So the big challenge is resources and funding that at the moment, as we're still developing and growing the exposure of the game. But we've got some great sponsors on board in Vodafone and the government that are helping us out at the moment, and World Rugby's funding as well to help us get to these events.
Yeah, look, as they should. You know, no point everybody chasing England for 4 years and then New Zealand winning 1 game, and we're back round to square one again. What in terms of those contracts, because it's the first time I've ever heard anything about that, and I'd like to think of keep a reasonably close eye on women's rugby. Otherwise, why would we be doing this? flesh that out a little bit in terms of the contracts for the sevens and 15s, if you would.
Yeah, so just back before I started, I think September last year, the decision was made by the interim board to contract the sevens players through to Olympics, to offer them salaries for them to be able to play, train, and be paid for that. Previously, they were on allowances and camp allowances, but they made the decision to invest in salaries for the players. So I think we've got about 24 players in the seven space on contracts currently. In the 15 space, we made a decision in December last year to give the Super franchise back to the Fijian Drua. The Fijian Drua have the men's franchise, but the Fijian Drua women were under FRU control. We made a decision and went to a relationship agreement with the Fijian Drua for the players to go there. And in conjunction with them, we were able to contract 30 players on national contracts. And again, to invest that money into the players and then centralise them in Nandi, so that all the players will be based and living in Nandi, training out of Nandi in a centralised model rather than a camp-based model, where we'd rather use that money that we've got to invest into the players, into their salaries, rather than paying for camps, paying for accommodation and those things, to invest into them. We've also invested heavily in, we've got the Pacific Rugby players have come on board. We've got a part-time PDM that looks after the 15s program. We've got full-time coach, assistant coach and manager in place to really drive the women's game forward over here. So it's been a big investment and in conjunction with the Fijian and Drua to make this happen from a 15s perspective.
I mean, 7 months in, and the sevens team hits semi-final in Singapore. You qualify for WX3. You ticked off the World Cup. There's no challenges at all, Arnie. This is a walk in the park for you. It's all going so well.
No, I'd love to say it is, but there's a lot of stuff that goes on behind the scenes, as you would know, in terms of all of the discussions and strategy. And again, as I said, coming over here and really just wanting to put in some processes and systems around the women's game so that we've got consistency, so that we're driving and it's sustainable long term. It's not just to this World Cup and this Olympics. It's sustainable for the next group of coaches, the next group of players coming through, so that we've got that longevity in the women's program, and it's not just every couple of years when it's an Olympics or a World Cup that we're getting serious about it. So there's a lot of challenges in that, and that's changing what's been in place and changing culture as well.
Yeah, I mean, we briefly spoke about Ben Ryan just while we were off air, and he's over there at the moment, and he is godlike status over there. And talking to him when he was Fiji coach and I was a bit more involved in the sevens, I don't need to teach them rugby. They've done it since they can walk, Fijians, but actually putting a plate of food that's the right plate of food, telling them that they need to stretch, telling them they need to recover and rest and have a day off, and actually those little structures. That's obviously been the most pleasing aspect of doing this. The rugby almost kind of takes care of itself, but you must be incredibly pleased with the way that everybody's reacted to that. Those structures, I mean.
Yeah, no, definitely. And it's been a big focus this year with the coaching group and the staff that we've got in, is to really instill the off-field standards and behaviours in what it takes to be an elite professional athlete. And that's something that, again, culturally over here, in terms of the food and how we go about it, about our 1%ers, our recovery, our analysis, our looking after ourselves, our balance in our lives, and the like, has been something that's been a real big focus through the first 3 months of this year with the 15s team, in getting them prepped and transitioning to living on their own in houses, having to get simple things like living together, paying rent, going to training, getting to training, and the things and what they're eating is a part of this change that we're in at the moment. And the next couple of months, we're going to have some hiccups in that, but we're starting to see the players understanding that more, and we're starting to see them now, when we were in Oceania's, questioning the food that was given to them and things like that, which was something that probably in the past they've never done. The recoveries, wanting to make sure they're doing their recovery and getting that off field right, is something that is going to take us further up the ladder, I think, and be very competitive come World Cup time.
Yeah, I remember Ben talking about base plates, no base plates, colourful plates. And I remember telling one story. Eggs good. I said, yeah, no, eggs are fine. And then he saw that same player with about 25 fried eggs going back to his table to eat. It's like, no, you haven't quite got it. But that's kind of what you're looking at, isn't it? And that's a very different rugby kind of in psychological and sociological, theological kind of challenges, isn't it?
Yeah, no, definitely, and it's definitely a credit to the staff and the players in the last 3 months that have been really working really hard around the education and the nutrition, and our nutritionists coming in and continuing to work with the players and showing them what good looks like. And then we've got a few cool ideas that we'll try and implement over the next few months around potentially looking at doing some cooking classes and cooking groups in little groups where they come and have house parties to cook, and just little cool ideas like that to continue that development and growth away from the field.
What were you most pleased about? Let's get into a little bit of rugby. I won't keep you too much longer, although I could talk to you for weeks, as you well know. 29-3, Tonga in that opening game at Sunnybank Rugby Club. And then, I can't resist an accent when I get a chance. Then, it was a reasonable score. Was it Papua New Guinea 85-6? And then that dramatic 27-13 was against Samoa. Although you raced into 21-0 lead, what most pleased you? Let's concentrate on that Samoa game first.
Yeah, I think that the most pleasing aspect was the way this group has evolved in their style of play, the ability to be able to play structured and then to do that Fiji style. That was something that was really pleasing, particularly in that first half, the ability to absorb pressure and then play to our game plan and create the space out wide to score some really good tries. That was really, really pleasing. And then the second half, as you said, we were up pretty well in the first half. And then, unfortunately, in the second half, we were unable to hold possession. We were under a lot of pressure in that second half, early in the second half. But our discipline and defence held up really well. And that was something that probably they haven't been renowned for, particularly at different parts of the year and particularly last year in terms of that discipline. But the defensive line to be able to hold, and we gave away a few penalties, but again, the defensive effort from the players was fantastic. And it probably goes back to the hard work that they did on the training paddock leading into that. And then the ability to take penalty goals, something that Fiji probably isn't well known for. But, when we're getting penalties inside the 22, actually the awareness to take penalty goals to keep the scoreboard ticking over and keep beyond a try and beyond 2 tries was something that was really pleasing from the group. And I think that's a credit to the staff and the players in terms of how they've developed, and the coaching groups worked really hard on the players in developing that IQ and that ability to manage a game.
I watched from afar. You watched that last quarter and you could see a team that clearly was being invested in terms of on the paddock, that defence. There was less tiredness, and then there's that fitness, and Samoa defensively, a couple of high shots in there, weren't they? That tiredness, mental and physical fatigue getting in there. It very much looked like on the right course. As you say, it's a really exciting time. 10 tests, and then 2 really, really exciting tests. Only a couple of weeks away. 10 odd days away. 14th of June in Suva and Lotaka on the 20th. Have I said that right?
Yeah.
Come on.
Lautoka, yeah. So
Lautoka for this Japan series. That's really exciting as well, because they're in a sort of similar kind of phase to you, really. This sort of upward trajectory of development.
Yeah, definitely. And we played Japan before WXV3 last year, and they've reciprocated by coming over here this year, and it's the first test matches on home soil since 2022 against Canada, and the Maori Wahine team that came over pre-World Cup. So it's exciting. They play a different style of rugby. They've just won the Asian Championships. So it's definitely going to be a good challenge and a different challenge to the Samoa, Tonga and PNG game. So it's, again, giving the players the exposure to different styles of rugby that we're going to probably face in WXV3 and in the World Cup.
What sort of crowds are you getting there, Alana? I mean, as you say, it's not very often it happens, but what's the sort of demographic of that crowd as well? You go to Twickenham for the Red Roses now, and God Save the King is 4 octaves higher, and there's just a really different atmosphere. I much prefer it if I'm honest. What sort of crowds? What kind of people are turning up to watch your great team?
Yeah, a lot of family and friends will be turning up to the game, and then we had a semi final here in Suva, in the Super Rugby competition. I think we had through the gates around 8,000 to 9,000 people before kickoff. It was a double header with the men, so there'll be a lot of family and friends. There'll be a lot of the rugby general public coming to see it. A lot of school kids will be coming to see it, because, as I said, Fiji is rugby and rugby is Fiji, so we'll get a good cross section of adults, but a lot of female support from the local communities, in terms of the rugby clubs, the rugby provinces, and the schools as well will be coming to these matches.
Is there a cultural thing? South Africa have had to get over a big cultural thing of women actually playing the game of rugby. Is that a hurdle you've had to face?
Yeah, definitely. There's been a lot of stories that you hear from a lot of the players where initially they were told not to be, they shouldn't be playing rugby. They should be at home looking after the family and doing things like that. So there is a cultural shift, and I think that the Super Rugby and the last World Cups helped that with the success they've had. And it's seeing them win a game, just seeing clips recently of them winning their first game against South Africa, and just the joy. And then the Sevens have also contributed to that in 2021, winning bronze. That was massive for the nation as well. They're on the $7 note. Ben Ryan was the first $7 note. And then after the last Olympics in Tokyo, the men and women were on the $7 note, which is a massive step for women's rugby here in Fiji. So I think since that Olympics, we've started to see a change, and everyone is starting to support it. And I think, looking at some of the recent Bosco Trophy and the Fairbrother Challenge trophies, the women's game have been more entertaining, I think, than the men's game, and just the way they play and the style that they play is really, getting supporters on board.
I'm speaking about Sevens of tournaments, Olympics, and your medal prospects. What's the goal for Paris? Very quickly.
Yeah, obviously we want to be on the podium. Obviously being bronze medalist last Olympics, we want to get on the podium again. We've had some good growth in Hong Kong, Singapore making the semi-finals. Unfortunately, Madrid we were unable to really fire. So that's definitely something that we're looking to do the prep now. We've got some great prep going to Australia for a camp, playing the Australian team, Japan team, and then heading to France fairly early to do a few-week camp over there to acclimatise and get ready for the Olympics. But it's definitely wanting to push getting onto the podium again.
Well, you're coming over to Paris, presumably.
Don't know yet. Possibly will be. I know Gareth will be there as the program manager looking after the teams. I hope to get there, but yeah, not too sure as yet as to whether I can get across.
Understood. Well, you'll have to pack plenty of jumpers if that's the case, from what you've been used to over here. I can assure you that. Look, Alana, it would be remiss if I didn't just ask you about this. There was a story of the Sevens girls sleeping outside Sydney Airport en route to Dubai. Apologies that have been made and what have you, but just an unfortunate incident. I just wanted to give you a chance to sort of just give your opinion and your thoughts on that.
Yeah, no, it shouldn't have happened, and I think that's the consensus. When it came out, we found out as it happened. The men's and women's program were both on the same flight. The men were able to secure accommodation prior to leaving, and the decision was made that there was a 4-hour window where the team had to vacate Sydney Airport, and the decision was made to not get accommodation, and the accommodation, they looked close by but couldn't find anything, and the decision was made to go outside for those 4 hours. Again, shouldn't happen, and it's something that we reviewed quite heavily. We've got, as I said, processes now in place to make sure that when the men's and women's teams are leaving, that we've checked our connection flights and making sure that if there is stopovers beyond sort of 4 or 5 hours, that we're looking at what are our options in terms of, do we go and get accommodation and as a stopover and and communicate that with the travel arrangers to make sure that we've got things in place so that the players don't have to stay for long periods in the airport. And that happened on the way to LAX. For Madrid, the team was there for a while. We were able to get the Fijian community. We were able to go to a hall, community hall, have lunch, go to a park, have some stretch, get out of the airport and look after the players rather than leave them in an airport. So it was unfortunate. It shouldn't happen. And it's something that we're very, very keen to continue to drive that change in terms of making sure that the men and women are on the same page and that we're also supporting both of them and making sure that it's equal in terms of what happens going forward.
Yeah, look, we've got to report these things, and it would be remiss if I hadn't asked you about it. But it's extraordinary, isn't it? Because those people don't then pick up the phone and speak to you about qualifying for the World Cup or your Test series with Japan or the Olympics, do they? It's clickbaity stuff. Sadly, that's the world we live in. But I'm so pleased to have spent 99% of our chat talking about positive stuff, and we expected nothing less, but clearly doing a fantastic job over there. What does the rest of the day look like for you? Just sort of coconut daiquiri by the pool, Alana, yeah?
I wish. I've actually got a Rugby World Cup meeting at 11 o'clock our time with the organisers. So it'll probably be go and turn my air conditioning on and try and make sure that I can speed the internet up so that we don't have the same issues we've had today.
Oh, look, really, really appreciate you giving us loads and loads of time. Hugely appreciate it. Always a pleasure to speak to you. If you go over to Paris, then certainly enjoy that. If not, yeah, enjoy that Test series with Japan. And from us all, it's just brilliant to see Fiji is doing so well.
Yeah, no, thank you, Johnny, and thank you to you and the pod for all you do for bringing, the women's game to the world and sharing the stories across all women's rugby. It's always a great pleasure to click on and see who you're talking to and follow the pod. So thank you and to you and your team.
I'm Kate Zachary, and you are listening to the Women's Rugby Pod.
Great to hear about Fiji. I mean, if they get all those nuts and bolts and discipline and structures Alana was talking about there, Sadia, I mean, the raw rugby talent, rugby is Fiji, Fiji is rugby, again, as Lana said, is a really scary prospect, isn't it? Because that opening game of the World Cup, actually, at times, there was a little bit of almost England Red Roses. Okay, it's first game and all the rest of it, and all the pressure, whatever. But you looked a little bit under pressure at times.
Yeah, no, definitely. That first opening game of the World Cup playing against Fiji, there was definitely times that we were under the cuff. Fiji, everyone knows how they like to play, they like to keep the ball alive, and for teams defending that, it's really, really tough. And eventually they're able to find cracks, and that's what they did with us in that opening game. But like you said, I think Fiji, they've literally got the base that any other team would want. They've got the raw athleticism, they've got the strength, the power, and it's just about getting other little bits that can click in, like you said, and that prospect of what they can be and what they can do once that all falls into place. It's scary.
It really is. And those huge amount of test matches they've been playing it this year, and that's exactly what WXV and this whole drive is to do. We're seeing it across the board, aren't we? Across the world, nations getting more time in a test environment, which can only be a good thing. And the tide is rising for all in women's rugby.
And here's the rest of the news around the world from Rory.
Thanks, guys. Lots of news to bring you up to date with from all over the world. I'm Rory Taylorson playing at Weybridge Rounders Valkyries. Let's get you up to date. First up, the Oceania Rugby Women's Championships 2024. Last Wednesday, Fiji faced Papua New Guinea, 85 points to 6 the final score, while Samoa beat Tonga, 29-7. In the final round at the weekend, Tonga secured victory over Papua New Guinea, 39-5, to finish third. In a rerun of last year's final, which you'll remember was the dramatic 19-18 win for Samoa, but this year, Fiji came out on top, pushed all the way by Samoa. It finished 27-13. And with that, Fiji booked their place at next year's World Cup. As you've been hearing, in addition, Samoa and Fiji go into WXV3 as first and second in the Oceania Championships. To the PWR here in England, the final round of fixtures were played out at the weekend. Exeter thrashed Leicester 59-27. Harlequins lost to London rivals Ealing Trailfinders 27-54, while Sadia's Loughborough Lightning came up short against Saracens 24-33 at the final whistle. And Sale came up with their second win in a row over semi-finalist Bristol by just 3 points in the end, 27-24. So the PWR semi-finals are this Sunday. 2 huge games. At 2 o'clock, Saracens host Bristol at the Stone Axe, and 4:30 it's rerun of last year's final, with Exeter off to Kingsholm to face the champions Gloucester-Hartpury. More club news, this from South Africa. Round 8 of the Women's Premier Division. Western Province travelled to EP Queens and put 73 unanswered points on them. Border just got past Free State, 14-10. Bulls Daisies won on the road at Golden Lions, 17-52. And there was only 1 point between the Sharks and Boland, the Sharks clinching it, 9-8. No change to the table, with Bulls Daisies leading the way. Western Province, Boland Dames and Border Ladies making up to the top 4. This week, the pick of fixtures, first versus third as the Border Ladies travel to the Bulls Daisies. The Sharks, trying to break into that top 4, host Western Province. EP Queens take on the Golden Lions and Free State go head-to-head with Boland Dames. The top French league, the Elite R Feminine, is down to 2, with the semi-finals at the weekend. Stade Bordelais came through a tough one with Blagnac, 29-19. And in the other half of the draw, Rogmanard beat Stade Toulousain, 27-15. So the final will be at 7:15 p.m. on Saturday at Stade Bellay-Oraison in the mad rugby town of Bourgois as Stade Bordelais face ASA Rogmanard. It was the final round of HSBC World 7 Series in Madrid at the weekend, where Australia were crowned champions. They overcame France 26-7 in the final to claim gold, Maddie Levi with a hat-trick, while New Zealand took bronze, Canada 4th. Elsewhere, China, who were unbeaten all weekend, will replace South Africa as a core team after beating Belgium, while South Africa lost to Spain. Japan faced Uruguay and were able to maintain their spot at the series with a 26-12 win, as did Brazil, defeating Poland 38-7. There you are with the rest of the news, every week, from all over the oval world. Roy Taylorson signing off.
I'm Jill Burns, and you're listening to the wonderful Women's Rugby Pod.
Rory, thank you so much. Yeah, just we make no apologies for this because it is complicated. I can assure you. We on a WhatsApp group with Emma from World Rugby, who sends constant texts and pretty graphics and what have you, who's qualified and when they're qualifying and all the rest of it. And it's constantly updated. So World Cup qualification, just to update it, already qualified. England, Australia, New Zealand and France. From Europe, Ireland, from Asia, Japan, obviously winning the Asia Championship. Alana alluded to that, didn't she, when we were speaking to her. From Africa, South Africa, Rugby Africa Championship. From Pacific, USA. Oceania, of course, Fiji. We just heard from Alana. They're becoming the latest and the 9th team to book their place at next year's big dance. Where are we at with WXV, I hear you ask? I don't, but we'll tell you anyway. In WXV1, all the spots are filled. England, France, Ireland, New Zealand, USA, and Canada. In WXV2, Scotland, Italy, Australia, Japan, South Africa, with 1 space to fill. In 3, it's Netherlands, Fiji, Samoa, Hong Kong, China, and Madagascar thus far. You're up to date. As we will try to keep you up to date here on the WRP. We did just touch on it with Alana, and I do thank her for fielding the question about the Fiji women sleeping outside the airport. And Alana spoke really well about that. there aren't many negative stories around women's rugby. But yeah, the Kenya Lionesses, despite their performances in the Africa Cup and the HSBC World Sevens Challengers Series, facing financial struggles and have been for a while now. For 7 months, these athletes have gone unpaid, with some struggling to meet basic needs like their rent and their bills. Despite repeated offers, the Kenyan Rugby Football Union has failed to resolve the issue, leaving players frustrated and really disheartened. And the former captain has publicly criticised the KRU, pointing out the persistent issue of unpaid allowances and the lack of support and vision within the federation. It's time for KRU to prioritise the welfare of these dedicated players. It must just be soul destroying, son. I'm not going to ask you to talk about that incident, but it's not like playing chess, is it, professionally? Rugby is a game that takes a huge amount out of you. Look, chess takes a lot out of you mentally, absolutely, and you might get a bit of thumb and the finger strain. But it's a very, very physical game. You are putting yourself at risk, as we know, various lawsuits going on or whatever. To not get paid, we've got to do better, haven't we?
Rugby is such a time-consuming sport. As much as we love to do it, we love to get on the pitch and play the games. For these Kenyan athletes, the bare minimum is to get paid, and to hear that they are some of the players are having really financial struggles, not been able to pay their rent. It's not something you want to hear at all. When with rugby, I feel like players put so much time and effort into it, and people are often happy to do it unpaid, but these are professional athletes, and they deserve to be getting this, to not be getting this treatment. So yeah, I mean, it's not a great story to hear, and hopefully it gets better soon.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm actually going to do a bit of digging and see whether we might get someone to come on and speak about that next week. Won't promise anything, but yeah, I think that's worth investigating a little bit more. It was the final round of fixtures, as Rory told us about a little bit earlier on the pod. Want to look ahead really to crunch semi-finals, Sadia. Sadly, Loughborough are not involved in. So we'll just take a sort of whistle-stop look back at last weekend. Only one kind of real significant result for me. Exeter thrashed Leicester. We both predicted that correctly. Exeter getting those North American players back in. Good performance from them. We both also predicted that Ealing Trailfinders would beat Harlequins. 50 points on Harlequins for a brand new team. Last game of the season. That's really impressive.
Yeah, I think it's super, super impressive. And, like we said, we both predicted it. But Ealing, they've had a lot of results just not go their way by, small margins, and small things just not coming together for them. And I think, end of the season, for it to all click, it's really exciting going into next season. And 50 points on a side like Quins, although Quins haven't had the best season this year, but the caliber of talent they have in that team, for a team like Ealing to put that amount of points on them, is nothing to bat your eyelids at. And Abidal getting a hat trick, doing what Abidal does, but also there was great team tries set up. So I think the potential that Ealing has to finish the season on a high like that, and going into next season, I think other teams keep their eye out. Maybe teams like Loughborough.
No, I agreed. Yeah, Abidal's a superstar and probably the best finisher on the planet right now. Ellie Gildan might have a word to say about that, but I mean, yeah, she's a phenomenal player. But yeah, that's a really impressive result for them, especially at Harlequins as well. Jeez, Harlequins. We're going to talk about a couple of players later on in the pod, but a lot of people getting out of Harlequins, a lot of retirees, and hearing on the jungle drums a lot of other players leaving the quarters as well. When we get some more information, we'll bring it to you. But yeah, as we've said quite strongly in this pod at times, and been poo-pooed for it, Harlequins are in a hole. Evidence is all there for you. Meanwhile, Sadia's Loughborough Lightning came up short against Saracens. Much, much better in terms of the scoreline. Did it feel like you were competing far better than in most areas of the game?
Oh, 100%. I think I don't know what the possession stats were, but I think for the majority of the game we had the ball. I think we just couldn't really when it really mattered to get over. But also Saracens, they have a great defense. And I think we were going back and forth for quite a long time, especially into that second half. There was a lot of back and forth, kind of arm wrestle, and it was kind of who broke first and who could keep the foot on the gas. And Saracens, they're great at that. They're always great at coming back in those dying minutes of the game and putting the result out that they need to. But I think from Loughborough, a really positive performance. Some great tries, some great individual tries. And on a sunny day when it was boiling out there, but last game of the season at Franklin's Gardens with a good turnout as well. I think we were really happy with that result. A little bit being hard done by, but I think it could have gone either way. But yeah, to finish, a result like that with loads of positives to take away against a top 4 side like Saracens, we have to take some positives from it.
When you finish a season like, look, it's not the way I'm sure you'd want to be playing for the next 2 weeks, wouldn't you? You get through to the final, what have you. But to finish with a good performance, as you say, sun shining at Franklin's Gardens, the trajectory is definitely in the right direction. How important is it to finish with a little boost like that, as it were, or certainly going in the right direction?
I think it's really important. I think obviously now the girls are having time to switch off, but once you do get back into it and we get back into pre-season training, having it in the back of your mind that we have finished the season on a high and kind of we know what potential we do have. Whereas I think if you finish the season, with not so much of a great result, the team not really feeling very cohesive, it's very easy to come back into pre-season, into the next season and expect the same thing. But I think finishing on a high, it really does set you up. Those small margins to get you ahead when you do go into the next season.
And love for top 4 next season, yeah?
That's the plan. That's
the plan. Sale. I mean, we thought the Ealing result, yeah, that's impressive. I think significant, isn't it? Not only well done, Sale, great season at the end, second win in a row. But over the semi-finalists, Bristol, and that's a proper Bristol team, Sadia, by just 3 points in the end, 27-24. Big. I mean, talk about finishing on a high. That's big for Sale. On the other side of it, what did Bristol do from there?
Yeah, I mean, when I saw the result after the game, I immediately went to check the Bristol team, and like you said, it was a full strength side. So honestly, huge props to Sale. They've had a really rocky season, not the best season at all, and I think they would agree here and now with the results that have come their way. But to finish that high, against a top 4 team like Bristol, I haven't seen the game, but Sale must have done something right to come with a result like that against a really strong Bristol side. And Bristol, on the other hand, coming into the semis, taking a loss like that, against a team they probably thought they were going to come there and have a field day against, come there, go away with 5 points, and to come away with a loss is not something that you want a week out before the semis. So yeah, I'm sure Dave Ward will be going back to the drawing board and having a really tough, tight training sessions this week ahead of the semis. But yeah, really, really interesting, for the last game for Sale.
It's a difficult one, isn't it? You can either say, well, that sharpens your focus, doesn't it? Properly, you don't need much geeing up come Monday morning's analysis of the week before. I would not like to have been in that meeting. I can assure you. Or you say, well, you actually, it's really difficult to pick yourself up. The question marks start to come, don't they? But we will find out come come Saturday, because the PWR semi-finals are here this Sunday. 2 huge games. 2:00, Saracens host Bristol at the Stonex. And at 4:30, it's a read on last year's final with Exeter off to Kingsholm or Queensholm to face the champions Gloucester-Hartpury, both live on TNT Sports. I am going to grab predictions from you. I'm going to go full way. I'm going to tell you who's going to lift the cup at the end of this chat. Those 2 games. We know the history. Nobody's won a semi-final away in this competition. It's various guises, various manifestations. Is history going to be broken this weekend on Sunday?
It's Surrey, Bristol, Exeter, Gloucester. I'll tell you who I think is going to win each.
And
I think
why?
Surrey's is going to beat Bristol. And I think Gloucester will beat Exeter. And I'll tell you why.
Yeah, do. Go.
I'll tell you why. I think Surrey's, they've had a really, really good season. I've been consistent in their results right from the start. And I think, they've, unlike Bristol, decided to rest, clearly rested some of their strongest players coming into this weekend. So I think they'll have fresh legs. And Bristol, coming off back of that result, yes, it could give them the extra fire to go into the weekend and get that win. However, I think Sarries are going to take that as ammunition against them. So I really think Sarries are going to be able to just win it through their pure physicality and a lot through their forwards is where I'm thinking that's going to be won and lost in that Sarries Bristol game. Just because I know Bristol, they like to play for their backs quite a lot. However, I think what the Sarries forwards pack bring, I don't think Bristol will be able to stop that, especially when they're at a full strength side. Gloucester.
Well, sorry, if I may just interrupt. Bristol would take huge amount of heart from beating Sarries and handsomely as well, 35-10. That was what sort of beginning of March time. They'll take huge confidence from that, and we've spoken about just a minute ago the sharpening of the focus with a loss to one of the teams down the bottom of the table. Does that not get them over the line, repeating what they did that day?
If this was a couple of months ago, I would say yes. However, the way the performances have gone from both sides since then, I think Sarries have just kicked into another gear, and Bristol have, respectfully stayed in the same place, if not dipped a little bit. So I think Sarries will peak at time, whereas Bristol, might need another couple of weeks to be able to peak. So I think that's why I think Sarries is going to win that game.
I couldn't agree with you more. I think, I think it may have even been that result. And they sort of just tightened back up, as possibly only Saracens can do. And we've spoken to a couple of people. I remember Sidney Gregson saying the culture at the club has never been better. And they just seem to be hitting that time of the season where you've got to perform, and they put their foot on the pedal, and they've just beaten Gloucester-Hartpury. They're riding high. They're at home. You silly chap to bet against them at the Stonex, right? Timing their run to perfection. Yeah. So we're both going Sarries, are they? Sorry, Bristol.
Yes.
Sorry, Donna. She would make a difference. She would make a difference, wouldn't she? This is all professional. It's nothing here is personal. What about Gloucester-Hartpury, Exeter then? Again, sort of wobbly Exeter, swapped and changed their 10 quite a bit, but Tessier's sort of back now. They've got the North Americans back. Good old run out the weekend. Put a decent score on over Leicester. Gloucester-Hartpury, they lost to Sarries bye week. Where are we calling it? Or we're going home side again, are we?
Yeah, I'm going home side again. I think Gloucester-Hartpury at Queen's Home. With a home crowd. How the Gloucester fans get behind them, and bar the odd result here and there, I think Gloucester have always been a consistent side. And when you look at their team, they are just full of game changers like throughout the whole side. And for me, Exeter, they've had an up and down season. I think last year we came to the top four. I think everyone had all the top four had really great seasons, and you kind of couldn't really call it. You couldn't really call the semis, and then going into the final. Whereas this year, I think it's been a bit more up and down, and I think Exeter have been one of those teams, who when they have won hasn't been so impressive, or they're winning by small margins. Whereas Gloucester, I think, always eventually bring out a big result and show why they are number one. And I think being at home with that crowd is just going to give them that extra push. And obviously, Exeter coming away with a really great result last weekend against Leicester, which many of us can say was expected, but could it be a little too late? With getting back in together and getting that cohesion ahead of the semis. I think so.
I think I would be less surprised if Exeter beat Gloucester, or would I? Who would you be less surprised to kick the trend of history, Bristol or Exeter? I don't know. Actually,
I'd be less surprised if Bristol beat Saracens.
Okay, so we're going 2 home wins: Saracens, Gloucester-Hartpury at Sandy Park. I think it's that motivation for the Chiefs as well. Of course, the finals back at their place. That must be a big old motivator. It certainly was for Gloucester-Hartpury last year.
Yeah, and everyone knows about the Chiefs home fans. Not even just Chiefs home fans, the Chiefs traveling fans. They always bring their drums and everywhere they go. And to have a home final with that crowd, which I'm sure would be huge, with Exeter playing in it, it would be a huge incentive for the girls. I'm sure.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm going to go all the way through. Sarries lift the pot. There you are. There's my prediction. I think they just timed their run. Yeah, they beat Gloucester-Hartpury. I mean, even without Sophie de Goody, let alone other people. She only sort of came on for a cameo at the end, and she's the world's best player, apart from you and Berner. Well, I'll get a prediction from you once these semi-finals are done. But there you are. We're predicting, not unsurprisingly, 2 home wins. So we think it would be a Saracens Gloucester-Hartpury final at Sandy Park. Just about it for another week, Sadia. But a couple of little shout-outs. And mainly for the quarters. We had Rachel Burford last week. We spoke about her, and legend is often knocked around, isn't it? But very much the correct word for Rachel Burford. Shauna Brown goes as well. Tell us about Shauna and what she's brought to English club rugby and that Red Roses setup.
Yeah, what can you say about Shauna Brown? One of my really good mates, but also she's been absolutely huge for the game. Just as a woman in the game, as a woman of colour in the game, just representing everybody and being unapologetically herself. I think she's done so much for the grassroots, and I think she's that face for a lot of new people who have joined the game, and a lot of the reason why a lot of people have joined the game. Not just what she does on the pitch, but a lot of it is to do with the time and effort she puts in off the pitch, and generally she's just a great person. I don't believe she's retiring until until I see her off the pitch for a year. Then I will believe she has retired. But she's a great gal, and I think her work, it completely speaks for herself. And you kind of, she didn't have a long England career, but for what she's done off the pitch, you when I saw how long she was in the England shirt for, which wasn't very long. her work just precedes her. You think she'd have a 100 cap career by what she's done, but in such a short space of time, she's completely changed the game. So yeah, great girl.
Yeah, the 30 caps. We talk about a host of centurions in that Red Roses over the last squad over the last couple of years. Of course, a PWR winner with Harlequins 2021 came through Medway, didn't she? And the words after that final, I think Hugo's spoken about this in the last week or so. Her words really, really resonated after that final. Obviously, highly emotionally charged, and those words were used all over the place. Six Nations Grand Slam titles, World Cup final appearance for her, and putting Black History Month on the map in terms of the rugby family. I think she was hugely instrumental in that. And a real personality, used to be a hammer thrower, and that's kind of been like her rugby career. Swing, loads of action, and then whoa, wash. It's been a real power-packed, just like her on the rugby field, a real power-packed career. Katie Mew goes as well, battled back after doctors told her she wasn't going to come back. She's been a real great servant for the quarters as well. Of course, the PWR winner, and another lady who's been there for a very, very long time, more than anyone else, or certainly in terms of appearance, is Emily Scott, most capped Harlequins player of all time, 38 England caps, 42 points, PWR winner, Olympian in Rio, 2017 World Cup player as well, formerly of Thurrock, Saracens and Quins. A real mainstay, type of person, almost like a Sarah McKenna at Sarries, that kind of player, very, very talented. Some time with the national setup, comes back, puts it in, week out. Somebody you can hang your hat on week in, week out. It's so important for a club.
Yeah, I think people like that, are so important. We've got Kate Trevarthen at Loughborough, who also retired at the start of the season, came back and continued playing just like Shauna. But those absolute stalwarts of the club, who are there week in, week out, always can rely on them. I'm sure that'll be a huge loss for Quins, but also a huge loss for the game as well. Yeah,
absolutely. There are other retirees, but we're not going to sort of do them until the clubs have finished their season. I know Sonia Green we haven't spoken about yet, but we will get to those. And sort of ahead of next season, we'll do all the comings and goings within the PWR. But that's it for another week. Sadia is off to pack some more boxes. It's a big thank you to her. It's a big thank you to Alana Thomas. Really, really great chat, and so good to, because it's very easy, isn't it? And it is literally easy to concentrate rugby on PWR and England here, but actually looking at it around the world is great. For you listeners, hope you appreciate that. Thank you to Tom in the background as well. See you next week. Happy box packing.